We had to get fixed on the computer. Welcome to Public Facilities and Safety Committee of Monday, August 19th, 2024. I'd like to call this meeting to order. If you'd stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alrighty. Public notification: this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. We're all good on that, Sarah?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. We'll move on to number 4 for the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
All right, Tab, in a second.
There we go.
I'll second.
Mr. Bartholomew. And real quick, a heads up for y'all, later on in the meeting, when we get to a couple of these, we might take a few of them together towards the end, and I'll ask for a motion when we get down to that point at the back end of the agenda. All right, number 5, the approval of the minutes from June 4th, 2024 and June 24th, 2024. Do I have a motion? Not everybody all at
Okay,
once.
I'll make the motion again.
Thank you, Tab.
I read it.
I'll second.
And Mr. Bartholomew. It is a party of 3 today, guys. Sounds
There you
good.
go.
Any objections or comments to the minutes? And this will be approved with no objection, and I see no objection on those. All right, moving on to citizens' comment. We have 15 minutes total. I don't have any signups on here, but is there anybody that wanted to speak that didn't have a chance to sign up? Man, we're just gonna have a fun meeting today, guys.
Everybody's quiet.
All right, I know it's Monday, but work with me here. All right, we'll jump right to number 7. Jared, the Assistant County Administrator report. Jared, how you doing today, buddy?
I am doing great. Thank you, Chairman Cunningham and committee. Nice to be in front of you all. And as usual, just want to give you a few highlights of some things that are going on within the infrastructure division that aren't necessarily on the agenda, but definitely of certain interest to everyone here. First, starting in transportation. So SC 170 near-term improvements. Hopefully, if you've driven 278, 170, you've seen some work out there, some activity. A lot of the activity is taking place at night, so hopefully you see progress as much as you see activity out there. But those guys are continuing the work. They're moving on from the signal work and the site work and drainage work and starting to get into asphalt work. So again, that asphalt work will be primarily done at nighttime. The project finishes up in the October timeframe, and so everything's still on schedule. At the end of what you will see is a whole lot of black pavement in the 170, 278 area. So we'll get some free flow action underneath the bridge 278 for that to flow a little bit better down below on 170, and then all the ramps and all of the 278 from the bridge to going east to Oakadee River Bridge will be new asphalt. So that project is underway. Recently completed, again, in the same area near there is the old field signal. So if you drive through there, there's a lot of cables going on and a lot of signal heads. That is a signal for what we recognize as a temporary signal. Temporary not meaning that we're going to take it away, but temporary meaning that this is the quickest way for us to get a signal installed, for us to get a permanent arms that you're used to seeing mast arms. So this is a temporary signal. We just got that installed. Actually, we're able to get permission from DOT to get it turned on right before the storm. So that is up and going. Also in engineering, just a shout out to Brian Bauer, our interim director. He's not here today, but he recently obtained a new certification for Envision Sustainable Professional from the Institute of Sustainable Infrastructure. And what that is if you've heard of LEED certification, basically it's the level for sustainable practice in architecture. This is the same sustainable practice in engineering, site civil work, and transportation work. So he just got certified for that, and then he, as a authorized representative, can certify our internal projects as a third-party representative of that. So we're hopeful to be able to incorporate some more sustainable practices within some of our transportation projects, and then with him on board, be able to certify that project. So happy for Brian. Public Works. If you've been to the collection centers, you've seen some different colored containers there, some orange brightly container. They have the Rerun logo and Beaufort County's name all over them. That is our new vendor, I2. They just started August 2nd, or August 1st, excuse me. And we've been working with them. You guys approved that a long time ago. We ordered the containers. They helped us procure those and get those wrapped with our decals. So now when they're being hauled up and down the highways, you not only see them because they're bright, but you also see our Rerun logo and our name there. So in addition to that, I2 has had volunteers that are standing there helping educate our residents as they bring recyclables. We've kind of tightened the rules a little bit to make sure what we have is a good product. And make sure that it's being recycled in the manner that we're hopeful for. As far as Public Works, also a big shout out to those guys and ladies there for all their efforts in the storm debris. So a lot of efforts pre-storm. We had a sandbag operation that we got established. A lot of lessons learned through that, ways to improve that, enhance that in future storm events. But also they were on call and stood up during the storm event and answering calls during the day. And since then, a lot of hot spots throughout the county that they're addressing. Ladies Island, Bay Pines on Hilton Head, and in Bluffton, a couple of the key areas where we've got some focused continuing. Our disaster recovery group inside Public Works, so there has been both a state and federal emergency declaration on Hurricane Debbie, Tropical Storm Debbie. What we're working to is compiling our costs associated with the storm, both the emergency preparation, the Emergency Operations Center, our Public Works Center, to see if we have to meet our threshold. There's three things that have to happen. There has to be a state declaration, a federal declaration, and then a local threshold and state threshold. The state threshold will be met. The local threshold is $900,000. So we're compiling those costs. If we do meet that and FEMA allows us to make an application, then we would submit that with a hope for a 75% reimbursement. If we don't meet that threshold, then that is a local cost that we have incurred as part of the project. So just FYI, that's where we are in the storm process and documentation. And as far as airports go, happy to send out the update that John and Rocio submitted earlier this week on the update on the terminal project. So a lot of good work taking place there. They're finishing up the foundations and starting to see some vertical, and really about to go vertical to a whole nother degree here shortly. So a lot of good work. Remember, a $30 million project. Also remember that's phase one to a larger project, so we got to come back and find funding for the rest of that project, but a lot of good work on that project right now. Also, other work at the airport at Hilton Head is taxiway F rehab. So this is the, not the runway, but the taxiway, and basically it was in need of resurfacing and rehabbing, and that work's taking place right now. While traffic's still there, so this is nighttime operations while daytime operations maintained. And then we have, I believe it just got approved, I think Mike may have even signed it, a $5 million airport terminal grant there at the airport as well that leads onto this. That was the one we signed, right? So that just got signed this week, as well as some other grants that were pre-approved. Those have been submitted and we've in receipt of those at the administration level. And once legal looks over those grants that were previously approved at committee and council level are coming in from FAA and will be signed as that. And then lastly, at the airport, Sarah, if you can pull up that slide. Hopefully you guys have a good pair of sneakers. I've said it before, but now it's time to break them out again for y'all to partake in the Flying Frog. So I think this is, John, the third or fourth year?
What are you talking
Fourth year, Flying Frog, 5K at Beaufort Executive Airport. So the airport shut down. This is specific for this event. Not often do you get to run on a runway. A flat runway, elevation 3, elevation 5. I mean, flat as it can be. So if you want a 5K, this is where you start. It is October 12th, starting at 8 a.m. We have had very limited council participation in years past, and they're looking to change that this year. We're also hopeful that we've had county administration. I don't think we've had a runner yet, so we're hopeful to have a county administrator participate in the project as well.
If Mr. Moore runs, I'll run.
That's right. Hey, you may not know what you're signing up for, too.
You don't know what you just said.
You do know this is being taped. You're in.
That's right.
I might break a foot right before I know.
Yeah.
What time is
So-
that?
So October 12th at 8 a.m. So registration's open now. It's $45. And you can register at late registration kicks in at some point and it'll go up $5 more. But registration's open. There's a flyer and we'll send out some more information for you guys to, at the very minimum, pass it along. So as many of you participate, will be welcome though.
Will you be wearing a frog suit?
That was not me, and
I
that
know
will
that was
not,
not you,
that
but-
will probably not, will not be me
It
either.
could be you.
No. I would rather
I don't know, I
run
feel
than
like
ride,
8 a.m. scares
than
me
wear
more
the
than
flog. That's all I have for you today, unless you have any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Jared?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just a comment.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to extend my thanks to Jared and my compliments to him and to the staff of Public Works for the extraordinary job they did after the storm. They were all over Beaufort County, repairing a great many roads and seeing to removal of a great deal of the debris that fell. I received a number of phone calls from constituents on Hilton Head for the work that was being done here. And so I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the work that was performed, and as I said, extend my compliments to Jared and his staff in the Public Works Department. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Mr.
I
Chairman,
have a question.
could I just ditto what Larry just said?
Sure.
Okay.
And I'm accepting that as a thank you, but that is on behalf of everybody. So that was a big group effort countywide, both administration and obviously everybody in the different departments. So thank y'all. We are fortunate it was not as eventful as anticipated, but definitely something for us to practice. So if there is something more significant.
I'd like to ask some questions.
I was gonna say, same thing Larry did. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Well, I'm not gonna thank you yet, but let's talk about 170. Yeah. Are you still planning our cuts along there? And can you just reiterate, is there gonna be one by Ashley Furniture? Is that gonna be a force through and no left turn coming out of there, Oakity Center, whatever that
So
is?
in the short-term project, what's planned for is there will be a right, so that will be converted to right in, right out, Oakity Center North, Boulevard
Yes.
North. And then there will still be an allowance for a left into Parkers,
Oh, there will, okay.
but there is no left out of
Out
Parkers.
of, okay.
So Parkers on the other side will be a right in, right out. If you are trying to get out of there, you'd have to go loop around. So it will be a three-legged intersection.
And let's go under 278. I see that as big construction where Legacy Center is.
That's right.
That's gonna be an our cut?
Yes,
No
so
left?
Oakity Boulevard South, where Food Line comes out, that is an R cut. So in that scenario, you will be right in, right out, and then you'll turn right and have to get into the median.
swing around.
And then you can see they're building a bulb
Yeah,
out
a
right
bulb
now.
out.
So that bulb out is big enough for a tractor trailer. That's
I
how
saw
big
it,
it's.
yeah.
So a lot of times you may not even need to use the bulb out. So if you have a free flow of traffic, you can just make the U-turn.
Mm-hmm.
If you need to basically turn into the bulb out and sit to get across the traffic and then merge after that, that's what the bulb out is for.
Anything at Del Webb Boulevard with Seagrass?
No, not as far as the short-term project that's being constructed now.
Okay.
It was actually in the one thing I wrote down too. I'm trying to rack my brain. I know we looked at it about a year and a half ago. Originally, we talked about basically completing a cut through all behind like Zaxby's and connecting all the way down to Burger King, and that's where the light was going to end up being, is at the intersection where Burger King is. Is that still the plan?
Yeah, so what we have in the access management plan that Latch did is a long-term layout. So we're doing short-term right now and trying to take on some intermediate-term projects as well. Long-term has R cuts throughout the entire area, so there's not a major intersection that is a full access intersection that we're used to. But there are multiple signalized intersections along the way, and I don't have it memorized right off the top,
I
but
couldn't remember exactly either.
yeah, the intent is that there would be a parallel access road kind of behind all those fast food restaurants and shops on that side, and then you would get to access points where you can get to a signalized arc cut.
Which basically, if people don't know the layout of that, if that happens or when that happens with those cutouts, all of Sun City would be able to get to all those restaurants without touching 278 or 170.
We do now.
Yeah, well, not through that little road, but it would actually be a road and the light and everything. But you guys cut through right behind.
I use my golf cart.
Yeah, I was about to say. You're cutting through a parking lot is what you're cutting through to get through it now.
Correct, yes.
That's all the questions I have. Anybody else?
I have something.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to shout out to all the public works people that cleaned up Jenkins Island, the end of that dock. It is incredible. If you've ever been out to Palmetto Bluff, Jenkins Island, Palmetto Bluff doesn't have anything on Jenkins Island now, thanks to Public Works. They cleaned all the brush and stuff out of there. They put you put picnic tables out there, and my constituents out there enjoying coffee in the morning, and it's just, you can see all the way down the river now.
It's nice.
Even better than you can see in
Yeah.
Palmetto Bluff.
Well,
So,
I'm
anyway,
glad.
thank you, thank you, thank you.
Absolutely.
And Mike Moore as well.
Yep.
All right, we will move on to number 8. Jared, you're not leaving us yet.
Yeah, I'm gonna
2018 1
kick
cent.
this off and
Yeah.
then pass it, if
Okay.
that's all right. So this is a update to our 2018 sales tax. So obviously, we're fully collected, but we're still working the projects. And I'm going to invite Brittany Bishop, our Transportation Program Manager for the county, and then Jennifer Bragg, our hired consultant program manager, to come and give you an update. And what we're trying to do, don't read ahead, we'll get to the slides. Y'all all right? What we want to do is first talk about, we hear a lot of questions, as we've talked about future sales tax, a lot of questions about the status of projects or where's this information. So we want to share that information first. We're going to walk through the website to give a kind of overview and tutorial. Hopefully y'all have been on it numerous times and seen it, but just for those watching, to give where this information is, and then talk specifically where we are on those projects. And then game plan where we're going from here. Next PFC meeting, our plan is to come talk about future sales tax as to what is the plan, if approved, how we would go and implement that. So today we're talking about existing and status updates, and then next month we'll be talking about future and program, how that program would look if approved. So without further, Brittany and Jennifer, thank you.
Thank you for having me this afternoon. So as Jared said, one of the first things that I kind of want to note for not only council, but for those who may be watching us on television today is Beaufort County has a website that's dedicated to our sales tax referendum. It's BeaufortCountyPenny.com, and when you click on that website, it shows up here at the home page. So down at the bottom, you've got an option to join our email list where you'll have updates sent directly to you about any of the projects on the referendum. And then the banner across the front right there gives you the most recent things that the sales tax referendum is doing, along with some historical information just as reminders. As we move over to the referendums page, starting off with the proposed 2024 Transportation Sales Tax, TST4 is what we have called it. It goes over each one of the projects along with their financial allocation for them. And as you scroll down, it's a timeline, so it goes then going to go over the 2018, the 2006, and then 1998, which were the last referendums that we have passed as a county. Moving over to the projects tab. It's got each 3 of the categories for the sales tax referendum. So US 278 corridor traffic improvements. This is going to take you to SCDOT's website as they're managing the project, and it's going to give you more relevant information that is current. There in the center, you've got the Ladies Island corridor traffic improvements. So just as a reminder, there were 9 projects that were identified in a study back in 2017 for improvements in the Ladies Island area. So as you click on one of them, if you would click on Airport Frontage Road, this is one of the projects that we were able to use some funds locally that we already had in order to leverage the project to move forward in a faster pace just due to permitting in that area. So as you see, you've got your typical sections there along with the description of each project. And then there's a status bar that tells you where it is in the phase. So as you can tell from here in this project, phase 1 is completed and phase 2 is currently in design. Each one of those projects are listed below. And then that last category for you right there is going to be the sidewalks and multi-use pathways. Though we passed 24 locations on our referendum, these are the ones that we are actively working on, and that's 17 locations. So once again, this will give you a typical section of what that project looks like. It's going to give you the estimated cost for the project itself and then what status it's in. Moving over to the meetings tab. These are meetings that we've had particularly or specifically on projects themselves. So as you may all recall, we passed a resolution when we had the sales tax referendum that we would do a minimum of 2 public meetings per project. Some projects have received a 2 minimum, and we've gone up to upwards of 5 for some of these public improvement projects. All of the information is there. The material will always stay online. Any type of summary and recommendation that came out of it based on public comment is also posted online for everyone to view. Meridian Road, we can go to that one just as an example. We held Meridian Road and Middle Road as one public meeting. If you would click on the view material here, just to give everybody an idea that all of this is still viewable for the public. And then if you would go back, you'll be able to click on the summary and recommendation. This is going to give you a highlight of the public comments that we've received. It's going to give you a tally, whether or not we decide to proceed with a project or not based on our public comments. So all of that is historically tracked in our meetings tab. If we go, there we go, there's the summary and recommendation. So it's several pages. It also anonymously has all the comments. So if you scroll down towards the bottom, after our 2 or 3 pages of the summary and recommendation, it goes through each one of the comments that we have received from constituents. They all do receive a formal response. However, their names, addresses, and phone numbers do stay anonymous in this public document. And then over to the resources tab. This is a bunch of really good information that has built our prior and current sales tax referendums. You have up at the top left the 2024 proposed referendum. This is the information that we have been providing as a county over the last 6 months or so in order to educate on the referendum. The 2018 section right there, that's got all of our relevant ordinances, ballots, and resolutions. We've got the revenue collection under the referendum collection. Sorry, I can't see that well. So you would be able to click on the state treasurer's report and either to see how much that we have collected to date. So it's going to start at the absolute oldest, and if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you'll see a quarterly report of all of our financial revenue that we have received. And that total down there at the bottom is about $146 million in collection. We have still collected up until the 4th quarter of the year. Just some financial reports are up there at the top, along with some reports and studies that have led to where we are now. And then over to our frequently asked questions, the last tab there for you. Just anything that the public may have questions on, things that we've received repetitively. This is the information that we place on this tab along with the contact us form. We do have an email address that this comes to that myself and J. Brad Consulting monitors, and we do give responses as those do inquire about project specifics or the program. And I think that is it. Yep. Projects tab, please. Oh, up at the top, thank you, Jennifer. Up at the top, we've got the view the project schedule. Typically what we keep up here is the GIS. We're currently working on updating that. This is a live page. As soon as we receive information as the program management team, we are updating the website as soon as possible. So for today's presentation, we've got what is inside of the packet. It's the project schedules just highlighted there for you. And then I'm going to bring Jennifer up to start talking with us about the next slide. Do you want to, did you get it? Yep. Thank you. Okay, just to recap, those are our three categories up there. So it was a 4-year referendum with anticipation to collect $120 million. $80 million of that was gonna go to the US 278 corridor traffic improvements. $3 million of that was to Ladies Island corridor traffic improvements, and then $10 million was to the sidewalks and multi-use pathway program. Jennifer?
Go ahead to the next one. So part of what we want to discuss is there's a lot of back and forth about why, about why some projects are taking longer to get underway. What most people don't realize is every project goes through basically the same thing, whether it's a sidewalk and multi-use pathway to your 278 corridor. You still need your surveys, you still need to do your due diligence with your drainage. If we've got any permitting, that needs to be done. So these are all the things that factor into a project. So most people think, well, a sidewalk and a multi-use pathway is the simplest project out there to do. They're actually the hardest. And the reason why they're hardest is you typically don't have the same budget, and you're trying to make it fit within the right-of-way you have. Or if you need right-of-way, you're really trying to minimize the impacts. You're also designing these to try and save trees, to get around utilities, this, that, and the other. So they're actually more complicated. I've said this before, more precedence is put on an interstate widening project because it's an interstate. But if you're not messing with an interchange, it's the simplest project out there because you're already in a defined corridor. So keep that in mind, because several of the sidewalks and pathways, we've actually had to do more work on those. One, in order to figure out where some of the drainage is going. In fact, on several projects over on Ladies Island to date, we've actually done infiltration testing because the water's running off the road and just sitting. So we're trying to truly prove, is it really sinking in, or is it just sitting there long-term and evaporating? So we've had to do that as part of it. Obviously, we're trying to minimize the right-of-way acquisition, but most every project out here will need right-of-way acquisition. And we will be doing that. And then when we get into construction, with the procurement, most people also don't understand the procurement process from the day we advertise with the county to when it comes to y'all and the contractor gets the NTP is easily a 4 to 5 month process. Just that part alone. And then one more thing I want to mention is the environmental review. This has come up in comments that we've heard from citizens about doing the environmental due diligence. When you have state-funded projects, we still do an environmental review, but it's not necessarily a formal document. So if we're getting a permit, we're looking at wetlands, where they're located, if we need to do any mitigation, and getting the necessary permits for it. Bats has become another issue that we're looking at with northern long-eared and tricolored bats, where they may be added to the federally endangered species. So we're doing a review for those. But it's not the true formal document that you would see, say, on a 278 project. When you have federal funds, that triggers the true federal documents. There are 3 types. One is a categorical exclusion. That's your lowest level. You've got some impacts, but not significant. Your next one is your EA. That's the next level up. And then your final one would be an EIS, and that's typically new locations. So that is, every project is going through some form of this from start to finish. So can go to the next slide.
Just want to note real quick. Just to note, also while we are working through the project development phase, we are also looking to leverage our local dollars with other grants. So not only your federal grants, but your state grants. So to date, we have collected for the sidewalk program about $5 million in match funding that we've received.
Okay. Oh.
Is it working?
So this is a brief timeline, and the way this is laid out, the items with the blue text are various public meetings that have taken place. Those are true public meetings for the projects. The items in green are more defined timelines for when project development kicks off. So if you notice, like, one of the projects Brittany mentioned was did I go too far? I went too far. See, I told you you shouldn't trust me with this. Let me get to the first slide here. So what triggered the Ladies Island Access projects was the 2017 study. And this was actually a 2017 study funded initially by the city of Beaufort with county input. That is where the 21802 corridor and the other, what we've referred to as access roads, were developed from. No one had any funding. So when you look at that study, basically the 30 million was pulled from the conceptual cost estimates at the back of that study. The interesting part with the study is the 30 million didn't consider right-of-way acquisition and some other things. So Jared stated this early on, we've gone into those projects with a funding shortfall. After that, the county also put forth some of your own funds to start the design for the 802 right turn lane. So it actually started prior to the collection of the 2018 sales tax. On the design, the referendum passed in 2018. When you come down in 2019, that's when the county began the solicitation to select a consultant for the sidewalk and pathway design. Collection started in 2019. Then look, if you look, you actually jump until 2020 before any design started, even on the sidewalks and pathways. 2020, the program management, that's where J. Bragg Consulting was selected. Third quarter of 2020, that's when solicitations went out for the 802-21 corridor, as well as all of the access roads. 2 teams were selected there. So we don't get into any hardcore design until moving into 2021. Because 802 was started early on with county funding initially, and I believe that was the impact fees. That is where the right turn lane actually went into construction in 2021, and why it was one of the first projects. So then moving forward, this is where Brittany mentioned some of the grant funds. We've gotten CDBG funds for Stewart Point Road. The county was the applicant for it. One of the other projects, Depot Road, the city was actually the applicant. They used the sales tax funding as the match, but they were actually the applicant to get the grant for that project. So then we've got airport frontage, construction beginning in 2022. You see some other ones with Rebo Sidewalk, Bluffton Parkway, Laurel Bay. The reason why it moved forward as quickly as it did with construction, we got a $3.3 million grant. It's a military enhancement fund, state funded. We also did not need any right-of-way. Laurel Bay Road has an extremely wide right-of-way, so it's being constructed entirely within present right-of-way. And then the other project, we got a grant from SCDOT for the Transportation and Alternatives Program, so it's a $1.1 million grant for all Joy Road sidewalk. So a lot happening, but it seems like in the background where you're not seeing the construction, but there's a lot of due diligence going on to get from the initial concept all the way through design and permitting. So the corridor traffic improvements, if you remember, these were basically all of the projects, and as stated, you've got Sam's Point right turn lane. It was constructed early because it was started ahead of the program. And then airport frontage phase 1 is shown in green. It's been constructed. So where do we stand? You've got the 2 projects completed. You've got others in design. We've got one now in right-of-way acquisition, which is the middle school access road, and then 3 are on hold. And the 3 that are on hold, Mayfair Court was put on hold very early on because we were connecting to a private road. They didn't want the connection. Meadowbrook Drive, basically it was a driveway for a business. It was not the original from the study. And the more we worked with that project between coordination with DOT and looking at some of the wetlands, we decided we needed to place it on hold because of the funding. So this is where we stand right now. And so what you see here is on Beaufort High School, some of the ones that are put on hold, you see the expended amount. That was actually what was charged for each of the projects before they were placed on hold. And then the others are still moving forward. We've taken the stance early on, this was with Jared's guidance, knowing that the whole program was underfunded, is that the 21802 corridor would be one of the last projects, trying to get some of these other projects done. We're probably still will run into a funding shortfall, just because you always try and estimate what construction is going to be. Prices keep escalating. The other unknown is when we look at the right-of-way estimates, we estimate what we think it's going to be, but until a true appraisal is done and offers are made and it's negotiated, you don't have a final ultimate on it. So with that, Brittany, Jared, do y'all want to add anything else on these projects before I move to the sidewalks and pathways?
Just to hit on Beaufort High School realignment along with the mainline corridor. So the county, in conjunction with the city of Beaufort, are going to be entering a planning study of the area from the Woods Memorial Bridge to the Ladies Island Village Center. The alternative for Beaufort High School realignment will be further examined there. As you may remember, we had 5 alternatives, and we could not come to an agreement on what that alternative looked like. Therefore, we're going to do a little bit more due diligence in the next study that occurs, along with what that typical section of roadway looks like up to the intersection.
The only thing quick I would add is, so we do have a funding shortfall in the 2018. We're all aware of that. We've accommodated for that in the 2024 sales tax if approved. So what we're doing with the design is we're designing as if the funding will be there. And by the time we need the funding to go to construction, obviously we'll already have the referendum. We'll have to decide whether that passes. Great. If it doesn't, we'll have to come back and figure out another plan. But that's what we're marching to currently. So everything is being designed as if the funding would be available, and then if not, we'll have to come back.
Question, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Going back to Beaufort High School realignment, that's been an issue since Beaufort High School was built. My daughter graduated in 2001, first class to graduate. But is the school district, have they signed up to be cooperative now about this?
We have not had any further correspondence with them since it's been put on hold.
Okay, well, it's gonna be an issue with them when we get there, I can guarantee, so, anyway.
I think to the, so, and you're aware of the NERPRC plan? Is that, what are we calling the Northern Ladies Island plan?
Northern reason, yeah.
So we're hopeful that that plan helps us a little bit identify. So unless council gives us direction, we feel like that's the next step in the Ladies Island and the Beaufort High School realignment, is to see what that plan comes with, and maybe there's a solution that we haven't looked at yet.
There.
And then maybe we can re-engage with the school district and the other stakeholders to push that project one way or the other. At the end of the day, where we're sitting today is a no option, and that is an option
Sure.
if we can't come to a solution. So
Okay. It's not my district, but I've been concerned about it since 2001. It's a mess.
Who is it?
Beaufort High School.
Where is it?
It's on Ladies Island.
It's,
It's
That's David?
David.
York.
And
Oh,
York,
David's.
yeah,
Oh.
both of them.
Oh.
I know they hear from their constituents about it. Okay, thank you.
It's a bullet we need to bite, but hopefully new studies will come through and there may be an alternative plan. I got a quick question now. Down Sands Point Road 802, I think I talked to you, Jared, about this. Your red line on the Ladies Island corridor traffic improvement stops at,
Miller Drive West.
yes,
So that was the termini that was
Yes,
defined
yes.
inside of the 2018 sales tax referendum.
Yes.
Through other local
Yes.
funds, we have been looking at an access management plan from Miller Drive all the way down to the roundabout, and I'll be happy to go over that at a further date.
thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Already knew where that was going.
I have one question, Mr. Chairman. Jennifer, you mentioned in your report that water is staying on the road surfaces. In District 11, we have a transportation, a board opening, and I'm interviewing candidates, and last week we learned that there is a new road surface that's reasonable cost that will take the water in and not leave it sitting on the road surface. Are you looking at alternatives like that as well?
So let me rephrase. It's not actually sitting on the road surface, it's running off and sitting on the edge. So typically, when it's sitting there, even on the side of the road, you want to make sure it gets away, like in the storms that we just had. If it builds up too much, then it's gonna start flooding the road if it can't get
Absolutely.
out. So in this case, we're looking for, do we need to improve the existing ditches out there, clean them, regrade them, get them to a true outfall? Or if it is sitting and there is no true outfall, we've actually done the infiltration testing and designed several locations now as part of the projects so that it can actually do what it's doing right now, which is sitting and soaking back in.
But I think I can address your question, Councilman Reed. So what you're asking for is different technologies and pavement surfaces as far as to let
Yes, sir. Yeah.
let it drain. So all the work that is taking place on these roads are DOT-owned roads. So anything that we do has to get approved through DOT, and they have a qualified products listing and a materials testing lab. So once they approve a different technology or a different type of asphalt mix, then that's when we can move that into a project. So on these projects, none of those that you're describing are planned as of now. But if Material Labs comes out with a new product, it's definitely something we'd take a look at.
Okay, thank you.
Could I just speak on stormwater?
Sure.
Yeah, just, I don't want to, I'm hoping that whatever we do, it doesn't impact the landowners tremendously. So whatever we do as far as moving water, I hope we do a much better job than other entities. Okay, I'm gonna leave it like that.
Okay. And the answer is, we're designing the standards to try and make sure we're addressing needs. And also, every public comment that is submitted gets read, and we've actually changed some of the design based on public comment, moving forward. One of the projects was All Joy Road. So, sidewalks and multi-use pathways. So Brittany mentioned all of the locations. These are just overview maps. The projects in yellow are the ones that are in design. The one on this map, Burnt Church Road is mentioned. Burnt Church Road early on was removed from the program and combined with another project. So this is the status of all the projects, and as I mentioned, reading public comments, All Joy Road was one after we went back through and read some, well, not went back, but the last public meeting with some of the comments we got. We actually updated the design. We pursued the TAP grant, which is the Transportation Alternative Program through SCDOT. We received the $1.17 million, which is still going through the final process for acceptance by the county. And then it'll have the final executed agreement with SCDOT. All of the other projects are in various stages of design and/or right-of-way acquisition. I mentioned the couple that have been completed. Most don't know Bluffton Parkway. The county actually had to advertise it twice. We advertised it once, we got a bid, but the contractor would never officially execute the contract. And we kept trying to work with them for a few months, and then we finally had to re-advertise it. So that one, it should have been constructed well before it was, over a year before it was, and finally had to basically re-advertise and get a new contractor on board to have it constructed. So all of the schedule for all of these projects is what, when Brittany was showing the website, is available for the public. And then once that GIS map is updated, this information will be transferred to that GIS map to enhance the other information on the website under the projects. So with that.
All right, I get the brief, the fun one. So 278, one day I am going to look back at this and really.
Greatest road ever
It
constructed.
will be fantastic. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting there. All right, so where we are, update on 278. So this is as clean and simple as I think we can make it. So starting on the left of the screen, so the environmental review process. So at the end of the summer, there at the end of June, the town made municipal consent, and that allowed DOT to submit the FONSI document to Federal Highway. That document has been submitted to Federal Highway, and we're expecting a notice back and approval hopefully by the end of September, so the second dot there. From September, we basically have a year of design. We're at 30% now, that's where the project is. We have a year of design to get us to the next stage, which is 60%. So next September 2025, we anticipate being there. 60% is a milestone in design world because that's when you start the right-of-way process and the utility coordination process. So from that process, it's another year and a half, once we get to 60%, to finalize the right-of-way and the utilities. The long pole in the tent on that process is the federal land transfer across Pinckney Island. So although there's no contesting of that, it's just trying to get that authorized. There's a lengthy process from the federal side to do that. So we start that in October, and again, we finish that in the spring of 2027. So as we sit today, we're 2.5 years from being done with design to start construction. The construction timeline, there's a 3 to 6 month timeline in there for bidding. So summer 2027, we would have it fully bid and ready to issue a contract. And it's about a 2.5 to 3 year design or construction to build the bridge itself. So as we sit today, the current construction project complete timeline would be the end of 2020 or 2030. So we're still a few years out, but we're on a righteous path. And as soon as that FONSI comes back, as soon as, again, finding of no significant impact, doesn't mean there's no impact, it's just, and significant is not a local term, it's a federal term. So as soon as we receive that back, it is all hands on deck with the engineering design and moving that forward as fast as humanly possible. Any questions on the schedule?
I have one.
Okay.
What if November doesn't pass?
So that doesn't affect the schedule specifically, it affects the funding, which is the next slide. At some point, the funding and the schedule collide, but right now, we have plenty of funding to finish the complete design of the project.
Okay.
So we have funding for the next 2.5 years. If November doesn't pass, we have 2.5 years to figure out how we're gonna solve a $190 million delta. So that's
No problem.
That's where we are. We've had, Beaufort County, if not many things, at least one thing is definitely resilient. So this is not the first time that we've had our backs to the wall on this project alone. There's been multiple times already where, okay, before you get to the next step, you've got to come up with the money. And time and time again, we've done that. So I have no fear that we as a county, we can meet that challenge, and we'll see what November brings and make a decision from there. As far as funding, we've all heard about the $490 million. So this is a SIB quarterly report that we provide to the State Infrastructure Bank on expenditures. And what it talks about is the local funds, the state funds, and then the SIB funds. So you can see on the far right, on the top is $120 million. That's their funds. You can see DOT in the middle is the 75 million, and you can see the local funds is the 110 million. So that is the project with all the funding elements listed there. It doesn't provide for the funds that the delta. So those are just the funding amounts that we have. Also, it shows the expenditures. So the expenditures to date, if you see at the bottom, I'm not good with colors, but on the bottom row, the far right colored total expended to date, all of that is $11,350,000. So everything we've expended on design, including the environmental review and the 30% design, is $11 million. The rest of the design is about $20 million that is signed, ready to go as soon as we get that federal approval. And then, like I said, we've got 2.5 years to work on that $30 million worth of design. And then we'll be at a point to let the project. So that is 278. Yes, ma'am.
Question. If you go across the line at 487, 590, 110, 600,
Yes,
74, 500,
yes,
and then 120 million?
yes.
There's a deficit of 182, 490. Were you aware of that?
That's our $190 million that we're talking about as
Oh,
far as.
100, you
Yep.
rounded it off? So it's
Yes.
so you know there's a deficit there?
Absolutely, yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right, thank
Yep.
you.
Yep. All right, so in conclusion, where are we financially? This is really small, so now's the time for you to pull out your slide sheet there. There's an 8.5 by 11 for you to follow along. And we'll try our best to zoom in as well, I don't know if we can. If we can, great. And then Brittany or Jennifer can come speak to this a little bit more.
So the way this is set up, and this is published on the website, the top portion shows all the revenues that have been applied to the program, whether it's the sales tax, state infrastructure bank, other grants, impact fees, you name it. That's all of everything that's been applied. So that's the top section. The next section starts the expenses. So early on, if you want to scroll down, there is a small portion of county personnel when the county used to charge time to projects. And then, Brittany, do you remember what year? It was what, 2, 3?
I believe in 2021, council made the decision that all of the county's salaries and wages were going to be funded from the general fund.
So that's why, since then, there's been no additional funding by county personnel. Oh. So then the other part, DOT, so DOT picks up 278, but also as part of the IGA. You can't really see it, Jared, from here. Anytime we submit projects to DOT under the intergovernmental agreement with them, they actually charge their reviews to the program. So you're picking up the portion that is the 278 corridor as well as their other time spent working with us. And the outside of Bluffton Parkway and a couple of other projects, every other project in this program is on their system. So the intergovernmental agreement is basically a form of a blanket encroachment permit. So once we get the approval from SCDOT that we can go to right-of-way acquisition or construction, then we don't have to do any other permitting from them. Normally, on any other project, you would then submit for an encroachment permit and still go through. This way, we've worked through everything with them from the beginning to the end. Once the project is constructed and built and accepted by them, then it gets turned over to them at the end of the project. So then when you get into all of the professional services, this includes JBRAC Consulting as well as everybody else who is performing some work designing the projects, from the consultants to the right-of-way acquisition companies to the, you see, if you want to scroll down a little bit from where you are, keep going just a little bit more. There. The very bottom company is actually where we had to purchase mitigation credits for impacts to wetlands. So all of that is tracked, and then even down go down a couple more rows. Even tracking compensation to property owners when we've had to go into the acquisition. The construction companies or for the projects that have been completed, Rebo Road, Airport Frontage Phase 1, Bluffton Parkway, we're in Laurel Bay, and the various firms there that have been involved with that. Utility companies, whenever they have what's referred to as prior rights, meaning they are outside of DOT's present right-of-way, and we're impacting a pole location or a box, then the project actually has to pay the utility to relocate their facilities. And then the other general expenses are permit fees, where we've had public meeting signs produced for that. All of that is tracked here so that you see the total expense, which is highlighted that it's been expended to date as of July 7th.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I do have a question. Can you go back up to the expenses with the SCDOT and explain that one more time to me?
So
I
the
just wanna
total,
understand.
the total expenses there are what DOT is charged to the project, whether it's for the US 278 or any time we have sent plans to them on any of the other projects for review.
Is there a calculated rate on that, or because that's, am I reading that right, $17 million?
You're reading that
for
correctly.
South Carolina Department of Transportation to manage projects that are all taxpayer funded?
Correct. But in this case, 11 of that is the US 278 project, plus is the additional cost.
Yeah, so DOT, so on 278, it's a county-sponsored project, and we're the owner on it. So even DOT is basically a consultant. We have a contract with them that they're managing the project, but much like Jennifer's managing and her team is managing these other projects, DOT is forming that same function for us. So we have a contract and an IGA that spells out that, and then the review is another time. But they have unit rates, and that's
Sorry,
what they do.
that's a sticker shock to see $17 million,
That's right.
so, to the state.
Yep.
But if you scroll back up to the top, and on some of these I truly define, so you'll see here that the US 278 corridor has multiple, it's not just sales tax. And it also is pulling in where there are the bridge replacement funds that are the federal funds from SCDOT with this entire project. The ones that are not truly defined, and I'll get with Brittany and we'll fine tune a little bit more, but like the impact fees. So part of the impact fees, I know, went to fund Sam's Point Road, but that entire amount is not for Sam's Point Road design. So we'll further define that. But at the time to pull all of this together, I knew the specifics on the ones that are listed there.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any plans, I see there's CDBG dollars that were used on Depot Road and Stewart Point. Are there any other projects that will apply for CDBG grant money?
We will look to other projects. Until these two are completed, we can't apply anymore at the time. Same thing with TAP. We'll look to apply again in the future for SCDOT. Because in the scheme of things, when you look at the overall project cost, if we can get $1 million plus for the same amount that we're applying to CDBG, even though they've gone up a little bit on their levels, they're still not in the same
I know they're not
category.
a lot of money, but still, yeah, I was just wondering. Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the MP strategy marketing? What is that for?
That was the initial website design outside. So that was started in summer of 2020.
I think it was a little bit before that, actually. So we contracted with NPS in two separate functions. The first function was an educational campaign that they assisted us to make sure that we were getting informative information out to our local communities and constituents. So that was the phase one. The phase two was once we have acquired some of our design engineers and program management team, then that's where we built the website off of. So I believe the total cost for that is it 80? 40.
No, 40.
Yes.
40 was, though, just for the
Just for the website.
That was just for the website.
40 was just for the website.
Yes.
What do you mean by educational campaign?
That was prior to the passing of the penny, and it was
Yes.
not applied to the sales tax. That came out of other funding sources.
There was documents, flyers, and things like that that was created from the marketing firm in order for us to disseminate that information.
So you're saying this $40,000 was to create a website?
It was to do the website, and then they,
Logo.
as,
Where is the website? Is it on Beaufort County,
no, that was the Beaufort County penny that she was showing early on.
oh, okay.
Website, we
So
just got a presentation.
40, you're right.
Yes.
So $40,000 to design a website?
They also helped with gearing up, so the very first virtual meeting was the sidewalks and multi-use pathways. And that one was geared up as part of the very first, or at the start of the website. So they also did that one. Since then, the website, after they did the initial setup and everything else, the website's been turned over to the county. So we're managing it here and doing all updates here.
Oh, we are?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Were you aware that in 2018, we also spent $140,000 to the same company? Did they do the website then too? For the 2018 transportation tax? You don't know?
That's
You don't know the
before.
answer to that?
No, that's before us. That was not charged to the program. This is only tracking the information that was charged to the program.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Very good.
Thank you guys for the update. And just to remind the people that a lot of these projects, there is a shortfall. That's why there is a referendum out there. That's going to be out there in November. So there's a lot of us up here that ask questions of when something is going to get done in our area, when's this project going to get done. Just remember that that funding does come from November's ballot, no matter how we voted up here or not. Just remember that's the way it is getting done. If not, we do not have a plan to get a lot of these projects done that are listed. Moving on to number 9 then. Jared, I believe you are going to take this one over, correct? Presentation on road and signal assets.
Yep, unfortunately, Brian had some travel issues getting back from a trip, so I'm gonna hit in substitute for him for these two. So just wanted to share, we get a lot of questions both from council and citizens about who owns what road and who owns what signal, and want to talk through that. So you guys have the information, y'all have latest and greatest. Basically, this is what we do to verify who has the road, want to educate you on that, and then you can still call us and we'll gladly answer the question, but just want to give y'all the feedback. And Carol's going to pass this out, and then we'll get into this real quick. So what she's passing out is the signals. There's GIS made a couple maps that show the different signal locations, and then also the road inventory, Excel spreadsheet. We'll send the Excel spreadsheet out afterwards, but this is it. So as she's passing it out, I'll kind of describe the signals, and then we'll talk through the roads. So the signals in general, Beaufort County, or excuse me, SCDOT
Thank you.
owns all the signals in Beaufort County except Bluffton Parkway and Buckwalter. So I guess let me say that again. SCDOT owns all the signals except those two roads, Bluffton Parkway and Buckwalter. Now, Beaufort County, the city of Beaufort, and the town of Hilton Head all share responsibility in maintaining that. And each of us have a signal maintenance agreement with DOT that clearly delineates which signals we maintain, and then there's funding mechanism that they pay on a reimbursement basis based off the activities that take place during that year. We just, at Beaufort County, just updated our agreement, and so that came through committee and council just a short time ago, and it's a 3-year. So what you have is the spreadsheet, or excuse me, the map, and I'll click on that. It was in the backup material. And you can see clearly the different colors represent the county, town, and DOT. So let me go through the roads and tell you what we do. So first thing, if you ever get a request for a road, the first thing that we do is we go into SCDOT Street Finder. Just type it in Google, and it pops up a link, and this is, as you're watching on the screen, this is all it did. So that's what Carol's running the computer for me right here as I talk. So once you get there, it gives you this landing page, and you put in the county, and then you can put the municipality, and you don't have to, but you can. It'll help clarify some of your results. So I want to show you what they do. So first example, Depot Road. So you type in Depot again, Carol. So when you click it in right there, don't hit anywhere. What it shows you is, I don't know if there's a way to zoom in. Can y'all see it on y'all screens in front of you? Okay, so what it shows you is there's 3 roads there, and it has 2 S roads and then a local road. The S roads, all DOT system says, is it DOT's or is it someone else? They do not clarify whether it's county or private or municipality. It's either theirs or it's not. A lot of roads have multiple owners. So there may be part of the road that is owned by DOT, part that's owned by the county, part that's owned by a municipality. And then some of the roads have the same name, but 2 separate numbers. They do S for secondary, 7 for the county. The black signs, you'll see S7 and then the road number. So it may be Depot Road, but it has 2 different road numbers. That's just how they have it in their system. So when you click on it, you see Depot Road S, I can't see that far, but S6 is a DOT road and that their claim ownership. All right, so next road, let's go to Bridgewater Road and type that in real quick. So Bridgewater, we'll type it in, is this a DOT road, county road? So you type it in, pause right there for a second, and it said nothing but local. So right there, it is 100% not a DOT road. So when we click it in, we see right here, it's a local road. What we'll do next, and I'll show you in just a second, is we'll take this information and either go to our handy dandy spreadsheet that I just gave you or go to GIS, Beaufort County GIS. And then lastly, we'll do the last road, Ramblin' Road. So do Ramblin' Road real quick. And so spoiler alert, Ramblin' Road is a private road, but you see it says local. So again, it doesn't clarify whether this is private or county. All it says is not DOT. So let's switch over to Beaufort County GIS and again show you. So when you're on GIS, if you go to the top right and you see the search icon, then you go to the middle that says value, and then you click down and you go to streets. If you follow the cursor as she's doing it. So go down to streets. And then you type in the road. You don't have to put the road or drive or the court. Just type in. So let's start back at Depot Road. And so now this is where we start determining who owns the road other than what Street Finder. We already know that Depot Road was a DOT road. But go back to Depot where you were. All right, so pause right there. So what we see is a solid black line. So black means DOT. This is in Beaufort County GIS. Black means a DOT road. Red is a county road, and green is a private road. So this is also black, or this is a black solid line. The solid and the dash is important. So black solid line means a paved road. So this is a DOT paved road. So let's go back to our other 2 roads real quick. Bridgewater, type that one in. So Bridgewater, we type it in, and this one is a red. I had to get some help on this because we need to change the colors for colorblind folks. But I'm told this is a red road, and it's a paved road. So this is a county paved road. This is inside of Woodbridge. Off of Buckwalter. And then lastly, let's go to Ramblin' Road. So this is back north. So this is, again, somebody told me it was a green road and dashed. So this is a private dirt road. So those are the 3 ways that we search what a road is, who owns it, and how both you can search that and then others can search that. Maybe, Hannah, something for us to do a tutorial on later. And post about it. So just a short presentation. We get these questions a lot. I want you guys to be armed with all this information and also know how to look it up. And at the end of the day, you can also dial phone number and call me and we'll look it up for you as well. So any questions on that?
Very good.
No, sir. Thank you, Jared.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, you do have one?
I do. Are you aware of any proposed changes on lights on Buckwalter Parkway?
What are you referring to?
Pardon me?
That was somebody online
Oh,
coughing.
sorry. Are there gonna be changes in the lights on Buckwalter with
So-
that affordable housing we were talking about earlier?
Yeah, so we have an access management plan that stages where the planned locations are for that. And right now, the plan does call for the signal. There's a signal at Publix these are
There's one
street
currently
signals.
at Publix, yes.
And then there's
Town's
a,
at Buckwalter, right?
yeah, so
Okay.
Buckwalter and Publix, there's a signal right now.
Right.
There's a future signal that was in the old version at the next intersection down, basically in front of Kroger. And then we just modified the access management plan to actually relocate that further. We relocated two planned signals, that one and the one north next towards Market Cafe.
It's now at,
And so it got moved, those two moved up to, that one moved to Parkside at Woodbridge, and the Kroger one moved to the other side of the Kroger gas
At
station.
Woodbridge?
yeah, the
That's-
new light is supposed to go where Woodbridge and, Washington Square's intersection,
Okay, so there's one light there, right?
That's right.
And then one at Publix.
which
That's
already
right.
exists.
Is there one going at Kroger's too in between?
Yeah,
there?
so there's
Oh,
one
three
plan,
lights?
there's, yep. And
And
then
then you
as
said Parkside, is that by the Parkers?
Parkside is at Woodbridge.
Oh,
That's
okay,
the name of
'cause
the
there's a
road.
Parkside, I think, up by Parkers.
That's
No.
Parker's and
That's
Parkside
something
are
else.
separate.
Is there a light going in there, or is that gonna be?
There's a
No.
third light or a fourth light planned, and these would only be installed
Oh.
once they're warranted. So we're not installing them until we have a good indication that they meet the warrant. So other one is on the north side of Sea Turtle Cinema, so on the outback.
The far side, it was originally planned where Parker's was, but at the request of Woodbridge, which is where I'm assuming your question is coming from, their light was moved to Woodbridge.
Okay, so.
They've been asking for that for years, but the light
Oh.
cannot be put in until it is warranted, and Washington Square has agreed to help get that done, but until Washington Square is built out and the traffic flow is there, it does not meet the
Well,
threshold.
No, I
so-
was actually I wasn't really concerned about Woodbridge, but I was more concerned about the affordable housing going in.
Yep.
And the Krogers and the Publix and, whoa.
Yep, so all
Okay.
that'll be looked
Okay.
at. We have that plan in place to plan the signals.
Access management plan?
So we do have access
So
management
we
plan.
don't
We
put any
actually
lights
voted to
in.
approve that.
Pardon me?
We have voted to approve that.
Oh, we
This
did?
current council voted to approve that updated access management plan.
Okay.
Quick question, Jared. I do understand, I think, when you say maintenance only on a paved road, that means that it's not owned by the county, but it's a county road.
Yeah, so if you see maintenance only on that spreadsheet, that's what we refer to as legacy road. So we've been maintaining it for years and years, but we don't have a perfected right of way. So a lot of those are on the dirt roads.
Yeah, or that it's
And-
paved.
Sometimes they are paved, but that's not our policy anymore. If we're gonna pave it, we're gonna make sure we perfect the right of way before we pave it. So most of them you will see will be on dirt roads, maintenance only.
And the Avenue of Oaks, I see where it's deeded, so we actually own.
So if it says deeded, then we own a real right of way, so a perfected right of way. That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
North of the Broad, NP total miles, what does the NP stand for?
NP, not paved,
Okay.
not paved. Sorry, probably should have put a legend on there. So paved is P and
Oh,
NP is
I
not
missed
paved.
that. Sorry. I missed the legend, I apologize. Okay.
Just a quick question. These are all the roads in Beaufort County?
Those are all Beaufort County-owned roads.
Okay.
So that is not
State road.
all the state roads, just Beaufort County.
Because the one you highlighted, which was Bridgewater, isn't on here.
It is, so there, I think that sheet's broken in northern Beaufort County and southern Beaufort County.
Oh, is it?
And so, yep.
Oh, okay, I'm
Yep.
sorry, I didn't know it that way.
Nope. And when I'll send out the Excel version, and there's a search find, and it makes getting through that a lot faster,
It's just county.
so.
It's a state road.
Gotcha, I see it now.
All right,
Yeah, Jared, you just raised a
Jared?
question for me.
We need to.
Go over that again. In the future, you said that if a dirt road is coming into our system, we're gonna on the right of way?
No, so, well, dirt road or paved road, it's gotta go through the process. Any new private road to enter, it's gotta go through our policy. What I was referring to is the maintenance roads that are reflected, which are, a lot of them are dirt roads. If they're on our paving program, then we're going to try to obtain the right-of-way and perfect the right-of-way before we expend, the funds to pave the road.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay.
All right, Jared, thank you. All
All
right,
right.
to get on a couple of these items, we have
Question.
about,
Question,
yes, sir.
question. Can you hear me, Logan?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
All right. We who are online, we don't have the presentation that, Jared, passed out to you guys there. I personally would like to have that, so if you would make arrangements so that either you give it to, Sarah to ensure that, I get it. I don't know if the other guys online want it or not, but I certainly want it.
We'll do 100%.
This is really nice.
Thank
Yes,
you
sir.
much.
Thank you, Jerry.
All righty. Let's move on to number 10 then.
All right.
Recommend approval to council of a resolution to adopt the 2023 Beaufort County Traffic Calming Policy. Jared, you still covering that one as well?
Yeah, sorry to be up here droning. We had other speakers. But we'll work our way through it. So this is a county traffic calming policy. So we actually have a traffic calming policy, but it is a one-pager. So as any organization grows, you get more details, more lessons learned. And so we thought it was appropriate to go back through this. So what we're talking about is how many times any of you have had somebody say, we need a stop sign or we need speed humps in my subdivision. Well, it happens a lot, and that was probably why the policy got implemented initially. But since then, DOT has updated theirs, and we thought it was fitting for us to take a look at ours and update ours. So I'm not going to go through the whole policy. It's in the backup for you to look at, but I do want to speak to some of the highlights, and really this screen speaks to them all. But again, the policy was initially adopted in June 2013, and it includes identification. What we're trying to do with the update is identification of eligible roadways. So not all roadways are we're not going to put speed humps on Bluffton Parkway, that type of thing. Appropriate devices, so whether we're going to do speed humps or speed tables or different things, the process on how to request that, and then the criteria for which common measures we use. So we've got the request forms in the background, so we've added that. We've added additional considerations, so it was pretty vanilla. Like I said, it was one page. And a couple of the big things are, so we've reduced the speed limit, the applicable roads. Instead of being 30 mile an hour or 35 mile an hour, we're only considering roads that are 25 mile an hour or below. These are typically the subdivision roads. So again, we're not putting this on bigger roads, on the H.E. McCracken, or we're not putting on Bluffton Parkway type. We also want to make sure that what we do pick fits emergency access. We want to make sure that it is a substantial road, so it's got to be at least 1,000 feet long, and not a dead end, so no cul-de-sacs. And then average daily traffic, so it had to be not a maximum of 3,500, and now we've reduced that to 2,500. So we want to make sure that we're putting the right application on the right road. That's what we're trying to get to. The other couple things is that, so this can be made by an individual, or it can be made by a municipality. For it to be made by individual, and it would say whether it's a HOA or outside of HOA, at least 50% of the people within the HOA, or one person per parcel, has to sign this. So again, this is, first, let me back up. This is specifically only for county roads. So this is not private roads. This is not in Sun City. These are county-owned roads that we own. So 50% has to sign the petition to request this. And the reason is, if we have one person that is a repeat caller that says, hey, we need a stop sign or we need a speed bump, there's a lot of people in the neighborhood that may not want that speed bump. And so the last thing we want to do is go and create a problem when we're only hearing from one person that it is a problem. So 50% is the threshold. Then what we'll do, we'll basically go and evaluate it. We'll hire somebody to do a speed study or a stop sign analysis study. And then after that, we'll have those recommendations and present that back to the community. And then for additional buy-in, if we say, okay, we said it does meet the warrant for a speed table, that then at that point, the 50% participation needs to increase to 75%. Again, for that same reason. A lot of the roads, that's not a problem, and so, but there's other roads where you have some neighbors that want it and others that don't. And then once we do install it, it will be on there for at least 2 years. So we're going to install it and monitor it, and then at that time, if we need to take it out because it's either addressed the situation or it's no longer needed, we can take it out. However, if we do make that evaluation and it doesn't meet the warrant, then we are not going to reevaluate that for another 2 years unless there's substantial changes. So if a development comes in and adds a bunch of traffic that wasn't there 2 years ago, we'll come back and do a reevaluation, but otherwise. If it's within a municipality and a municipality makes the request, then they will have to pay for the study initially, because not only do we get citizens, we get municipalities say, so every time somebody requests, we want to make sure it's a valid request. So they'll pay for that initial study, and then if the study warrants it, then we'll work with the municipality on how we go about paying for the actual measures, countermeasures. So. And then it talks in there, again, you can thumb through it and read the different types of countermeasures, but that is what we're going towards and ask you guys to review and support so we can adopt this updated traffic calming policy.
Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion for the question.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Howard.
I do have-
Any
I do have a
conversation? Yep, go ahead.
I don't think it necessarily needs to be changed, but I think somewhere in this policy, there needs to be the ability to turn it over to the sheriff's department, because sometimes rather than spending tax dollars to put in a traffic calming device, maybe just their physical presence could deter,
Yep.
some of that. So maybe just a coordinated effort with law enforcement.
Okay. Yeah, and that is something that's in DOT's policy, so that's a good mention because they want to make sure that it's not an enforcement project before it's a countermeasure problem. So.
Ted?
I have some comment. I was looking at, I'm on page 26 in the packet. I really enjoyed that we learned what all of these common criteria are. I was telling Mr. Passman, I always called speed bumps, never heard of speed humps. I'm from Ohio. So now I learned something new. Never heard about chicanes, and never heard about a road diet. And I'm looking at this one here. Do we have any of these? It's called a small roundabout?
We
A
do
mini
have
roundabout?
one, it's on Foreman Hill Road, so at the back
Oh, we
end of
do have
Malfris. If you're coming off of Bluffton Parkway towards Shad and Ulmer, there's one back there.
Oh, okay.
And actually, yeah,
I
that's the
didn't
only
know
one
that.
that we have as the county.
Well, I think everyone should look at the glossary. I learned a lot there. This was a lot of good information for the
Thank
public.
you.
Do we have any objection?
I don't have no objection, but go ahead, carry the motion, I'll just ask him after the motion's carried.
Sounds good. Let's move forward, no objection. Go ahead.
Are you and the state basically similar in policy at this time? And the reason I'm asking this is that, there's a road, I'll tell you the road, the Llama Road. And it's a state road, and it goes into a state road, but there's a problem at that stop sign at night. I don't know, should I make this kind of request to the state, or could you do that on my behalf? Because there need to be some type of speed hump or bump or whatever to slow that traffic, particularly at night, because the property owner across that road becomes to a dead end, as waking up at night with a car in her yard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So DOT treats us like we treat municipalities. So if we ask for interest, they say, yeah, you can take a look at it, you pay for it and get it done, and then we'll
That's
look
all
at
right.
it.
I got you.
So we can,
No,
I
no,
can
no.
sync up with you later.
No, I really have called them and asked them to look into it. I figure I'll just ask you to look into it, but that's all right.
Well,
Okay.
we can talk about it offline.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we'll move on to number 11. Recommend approval to council authorize the county administrator into in an LPA agreement with South Carolina Department of Transportation for 3 projects: US 278 corridor study, SC 170 corridor study, and Intelligent Transportation System Master Plan. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
And a second by Mr. Glover. Do you want to brief on it momentarily, or do we?
Yeah, so this is
Yep.
something you guys have already approved as far as the participation funding wise. What this is, these are 3 LAT studies. LATS has 5 studies that they're working on regionally. They have some manpower constraints, so we're helping them out on 3 studies. And then in order for us, since this is federal funds, that guide share funds that are paying for it, we have to go through the local public agency process with DOT. So we have to get qualified, even though we're qualified as a local public agency, we have to get qualified on each specific project. So we're getting qualified on this. This is our agreement. And then once approved, we'll have to work with them through the process to make sure we hit all the federal hoops. So that's what this is.
Any objection?
No, I have a question. Do we really need to do another study to see if 278 is congested?
No, so what this is,
Seriously?
I'm with you 100%. We know it is. What this is doing is start to programming the next steps on 278. So we know it's congested, but what are we going to do about it? And also, this is taking a look all the way from I-95 to Sea Pine Circle.
Yeah.
So the area that's not developed, Hardyville, this is a LAT study. So the area that's not developed, where are those signals going to go? Because whoever gets there first, if they raise their hand for a signal and they meet the warrant, well, that may not be exactly where we want it as local government. So it's a planning and then it's the next steps.
I just thought it was strange. We're looking at congestion on 278. Okay.
Well, we got to do something or otherwise
Yeah.
we won't have a plan to
But
continue.
the biggest thing is updating the master plan.
Evacuation,
Yeah.
interest as well, right?
Excuse me?
Evacuation interest as well?
Thank you.
Yeah, so this,
278.
278 is evacuation route. This really isn't going to look at evacuation. DOT has an evacuation plan, so lane reversals and stuff that they would implement. This is more looking at where the intersections need to be. Is there any access roads,
Okay.
driveways and such?
All right, would this be done with no objection? And I see no objection. This will move on. Number 12, recommend approval to council of an ordinance authorizing the county administrator to execute the necessary documents to provide funding for the purchase of real property identified as Cooler Track B. Talked about this a little bit. This is actually across the street from the property we have already purchased. They were just talking to you a few minutes ago about right-of-ways. This is getting ahead of the process so we can have control of those right-of-ways when we know that the law enforcement center is going to be that future location right across the street. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second the motion.
Second, any discussion?
Would it be cheaper to condemn the property?
No. This property actually just got rezoned.
Okay, we
Yeah.
did. Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we
I forgot. You're right, okay.
This will be approved with no objection. And I see no objection here or online. Moving on to number 13, recommend approval to council to award a contract to Wood and Partners for IFB 030524 Camp St. Mary's Park A&E service. Do I have a motion
So move.
and a second?
I'll second it.
And Tab with the second. Thank you. This one and the next one actually go hand in hand, 13 and 14.
I'll turn over the first half to Stephanie Nadgett, who will talk
Yep.
about the Wooden Partners portion.
Hello again. Nice to see you. So the first part is the Camp St. Mary's A&E Design and Construction Services, and I've been very involved in the planning aspect of this. So the Capital Improvement Department will does more of will do the construction side of it. In January, solicitation went out. requesting a request for qualifications. Since this is professional services, it's a request for qualifications, not an invitation to bid, and not a request for proposals. 4 vendors were submitted their qualifications on March 5th, 2024. That was Kimley Horn, MRB Group, Land Plan Group, and Wooden Partners. They were evaluated, and Kimley Horn and Wooden Partners were selected for interviews. After those interviews, they were rescored again, and then Wooden Partners came out to be the most qualified and highest ranked firm. So based on the procurement code and the state requirements for professional services, we then negotiated a price with Wooden Partners, and that design fee is $284,150, plus a 10% contingency. So
Does that include the contingency or no?
no, that does not. So the contingency is the $28,415, and the total request is $312,565. That is out of the Passive Parks Bond Fund, which is the 4502 fund. That's that debt services money that can be used towards passive park improvements, and that currently has a 3.5 and some change balance in it. So we have funding to move this forward.
Okay. Can we just make sure that, Sarah, that we have that updated for the public, either in the minutes, that the total amount is actually adjusted to the 312? Okay. Any other discussion or questions?
Yeah, I just noticed in the AIS here, it says there's only 3 proposals that were in there, but you mentioned 4.
Yes, there were actually 4. That was an error on the AIS.
Okay, and it does, and I'm assuming the same thing, it says a bid submittal, but you said it wasn't a bid?
Right, it's just the terminology for who prepared the AIS was not accurate.
So did we negotiate contract prices with all of these individual groups, or just with this particular one?
Just with Wooden Partners, and it's the way that the law requires professional services be handled. We can only negotiate with the highest ranked firm, and Wooden Partners came out to be the highest ranked firm. And
Okay, do we
then,
know do we have an idea of what the previous prices would have been, or something comparable to compare that against? Because 312, it might be a fair price, but then again, it might be too high.
yes, we did actually look back at previous planning contracts for civil A&E over the last few years, because the prices have changed. Everything's gone up. And this particular project, because of some permitting and some other site investigation we need to do for underground utilities and potentially old septic tanks and things like that, the services for those surveys is increasing this cost over just like just planning a house or something.
And if you don't mind me asking, what made them more qualified than the other applicants? Is there anything in particular?
There were 3 people who scored, so I can't speak for the other 2 people. For me, it was the knowledge of the site, previous experience with other county projects and with this property. And so they've been involved with more of the local permitting, and they were a local firm.
Okay, and I don't see, were the scoring sheets attached, Sarah? Because I don't see the scoring sheets.
It's not here.
I don't know if purchasing provides the individual scoring sheets or not.
Okay. You know, only reason I'm asking all these questions, because I'm hard pressed to keep approving contracts without having some type of price comparison or analysis with everything that's going on. So,
Understood.
not saying it's not a fair price, I have no idea.
I understand. And the price, actually, this is a bit reduced. The original price we got, we came back and said, no, we don't need those services, that, like, they were overestimating some of the time, so we were trying to bring that back into a more realistic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Chairman, just quickly.
Yes, sir.
You know, I was out there when we had the public meeting with Camp St. Mary and the neighborhood, et cetera, and of course, if it was left up to the neighbors, we wouldn't even put anything out there to keep them happy. But you know, this is a county location, and I'm wondering, is there any consideration for, and I'm just throwing this out there, overnight camping for groups like the Boy Scouts?
Yes, so
Yes,
at the,
You said yes?
no, well, I'm saying, yes, I can answer that question.
Oh,
When we did the open house with the community, Wooden Partners actually was the firm that did the conceptual plan. They were there for the open house. We had about 30 people showed up. We took all of their written comments. We adjusted the initial plan based on their comments of where people wanted the restroom and they wanted swings, they wanted, a camera at the gate, they didn't want it open at night. So something that we heard a lot was they did not want events and they do not want it open at night. And so we are taking their comments into consideration for the future plan.
but the community, the county basically have a lot of youth groups that could benefit from something like this site right here. And, you can limit it to X amount of people, but, for a Boy Scout to come out there and camp out, or the Girl Scouts.
Yeah, we do have other properties that are available for something that could be like that, but they would still have to come through through my department to get permitted and approved for such an activity.
Give me.
Yes, please.
Yeah, give me one of
Absolutely.
those property that you have available for campsites.
Widgeon Point.
Yeah, Widgeon Point, which is a partnership with Open Land Trust. So I just wanted to reiterate the point that these are rural and critical funds, and that there are sort of standing rules that what you can and can't do on those sites. But we will,
This property here now is not.
it's rural and critical
land.
funds.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
It was purchased.
It was
$2
a
million.
land swap.
We did a land swap. It wasn't.
Right, that's where we got the money to build the
Okay,
park.
Okay, now I
Yeah.
remember. Okay.
Yes, so, but there are uses that are predefined, it's pretty prescriptive. And if we have anything that fits that bill and we need to come back, we're in favor of, making these lands available for different types of uses. But we have to be careful allowing one thing over here and something else over here and not allowing it here. So if we run into any of those situations that are not hypothetical, we will be happy to address them, and if we need to bring them back to council, we'll do so.
Just keep in, consideration, scouting.
Yeah, we will,
Do
absolutely.
that. Okay, I
Yes, sir.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Can this be approved with no objection? And I see no objection. I just want to reiterate something Mr. McKellen said when we were preparing this agenda, that he wanted to make sure that this gets out to the people of Camp St. Mary's that are highly interested in the project, just to see that we are making progress, just like we did today on the 2018 transportation, to make sure that we are letting people know the extra steps we're taking.
I can answer that real quick. Yes, sir, I had a very lengthy conversation with the contact person in that neighborhood end of last week. They know right where we're at. They did make some comments that I relayed to our staff, and I think we're where we need to be with that. But
Perfect.
we will continue to communicate with them, yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, this was approved with no objection. We'll move on to number 14. Recommend approval of a contract to Wilma's Tank and Pump Company for IFB 061124, Camp St. Mary's building demolition. My understanding, this is all the buildings on the property are past repair.
Yes, and so this is, as opposed to the RFQ where we get the proposals and score them and negotiate, this is an invitation for bid, so these are hard numbers. And as you can see, we received two bids, 174 and 122. And the proposal is to add the 10% contingency to get to 135. This is technically under the limit that would require committee or council approval. The reason it's here is because it's destroying and disposing of county property. And so that's the recommendation, is to send that forward to council for the demolition of these buildings.
We have a motion to send this to council.
I'll make the motion.
A second.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Passman. Any discussion?
I have a question. So I'm looking at the AIS. This is the first time I remember seeing purchasing staff has reviewed the bid submittal and found the prices to be fair and reasonable. I don't recall seeing that on others, but I appreciate that because that's one of the items
Right.
in the HSB report that we reported to the public, fair and reasonable. So, and I know we have guidelines because Mr. Robinson just went over them with them. They're coming to council. So I appreciate that being here.
Thank you. And there's additionally, with even preparing of letter or form to verify the same thing.
Yes. I appreciate that.
Just a question, did this go out to, was it OpenGov? Is that right?
This was,
How
this
is
went
this-
out
how
through
is this
the,
circulated?
it was advertised in the Gazette/Island Packet, as well as SCIBO, which is South Carolina Business Opportunities, as there's a statewide vendor registry.
So we weren't using OpenGov then at that time?
This contract predated OpenGov.
Okay, when did we start with OpenGov?
Well, we started our first advertisements after July 1. We actually started working in OpenGov months before that to get it prepared for that.
And this-
The first ones that
and-
went
yeah.
were after July.
And this proposal went out on May 7th.
Okay, and just for the public and for anyone that didn't hear your great explanation the other day, could you explain why OpenGov is a good place to advertise?
Sure. So OpenGov is a new platform that Beaufort County will use to aid in solicitation of projects. So it allows us to update all the information from a solicitation on the project. It allows us to track the number of folks that view a solicitation, the number of folks that respond to a solicitation, or those that just want to follow a solicitation. It has a lot of features in it that address local businesses as well as disadvantaged businesses. Anyone who would like access to it simply needs to log on to the website and register either as a citizen to view what's going on or as a business owner who wants to apply for solicitations that the county offers.
And I think we agreed at our workshop last week that Hannah was gonna put something out telling people you can sign up through OpenGov.
Yes, ma'am.
Because we might get 150 people on one bid, but you could get, 4,000 people get the view through OpenGov. So
Right.
I want to make sure we do that.
The reach that the software program offers presently is much greater than we were using in the past. Really depends on the type of solicitation that goes out. So solicitations are advertised via the software, depending on the type of work that's being requested.
Thank you.
Is it feasible to have this put bound on OpenGov rather than accepting this now and just see if that price is fair and reasonable? Because there's a $50,000 discrepancy between these two bids approximately.
There are. I would recommend moving forward with it as is, only because our team has worked along with our project managers and our internal staff to make sure the price is reasonable, is fair and reasonable. It's comparable to other county projects where we've had demolition work done and disposal of debris and those things. So that's important internally that we do that. To re-advertise it at this point may be dangerous for us in the sense that we have selected the most responsive bidder at that time.
And last question, can Public Works not perform this internally rather than bidding it out? Or is this something of such degree that it has to be bid out? 'Cause
Well-
I know they've done other demolition projects before.
Yes, sir. I think this is within the ability of Public Works to perform this, but the capacity to do this type of work, perhaps not. The mitigation of some of the demolition materials becomes hazardous, so it's important for us to make sure that we account for all of the actions that have to be done. It's not just tearing things down, but tearing them down and disposing of them in a proper way. And because of the scope of work includes that, it requires this vendor to meet those standards.
Is there identified hazardous material out there,
Yes, sir.
such as asbestos?
Some of the older buildings had some asbestos that was identified, and that was all included in the original solicitation and understood in the scope of work.
Yeah, we don't have any of that information here, we just have
Oh,
just a gridded.
It's tons and tons
We got
of.
two bids. Yeah,
It is a lot of work. So what you'll see coming forward for those projects is a document that you saw, which is a summary of that solicitation process and how the Director of Procurement Services arrived at that recommendation, and the contract comes forward to you fully vetted.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to comment, I've been in some of those buildings, they're now an attractive hazard, and the sooner they come down, the better.
Yes, ma'am.
They had tile, I'm sure it was asbestos tile, et cetera, so.
And being constructed at different times, there are different construction methods and different construction projects. And included in that is after the site is cleaned, they'll refill that site to make sure that there's
Cleaned up.
no additional hazard left behind.
All right, any other discussion? Can this be approved with no objection? And I see no objection, so this will be approved. Moving on to number 15, which is a grant. Recommend approval to County Council resolution authorizing the county administrator to accept a solid waste management grant from South Carolina Department of Environmental Services for $115,750. And this is a reimbursement to the county. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Mr. Passman, and a second by Mr. Glover.
Okay.
Take that. Any discussion? Can this be approved with no objection? And again, I see no objection on number 15. This will be approved. Number 16, recommend approval of a resolution authorizing the county administrator to accept a waste oil grant from South Carolina Department of Environmental Services for $68,403.60. Do I have a motion for this as well?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Howard, and then a
I'll second
second.
it.
Ms. Tavernick with the second. Any objection on this one as well? This can be done with no objection, and this is also approved. Number 17, discussion regarding funding of a hangar airport construction project at the Beaufort Executive Airport.
I so move.
I think we're just taking a discussion on this today,
Yeah.
but I'm glad you're excited.
I'm ready for it.
I mean, I was begging for it like 2 hours ago.
Listen, my colleague's very concerned about the muscle that John brought in here.
I brought some bodyguards.
John, how are you?
Doing great,
Thanks for
thank
waiting
you.
around today.
I'm sorry?
Thanks for waiting around.
Yes, I did. First order of business, I want to just say that airports is alphabetically before transportation, so maybe we can look
We
at the
saved the
agenda
best for
next
last,
time.
sir.
Nice try.
Appreciate that. I did bring some members of the airports board as well as aircraft owners and folks who are very interested in the project out at Beaufort Executive here. And they were instrumental in coming up with this plan that I bring forward to you today. And Mr. Chairman, I do look forward to seeing you out there at the 5K. So I think we have taken notes. It is on record, so we'll look forward to it.
Found out later on, apparently he's a runner. I didn't know.
I think he jogs. Yeah, I think we'll be fine. It'll be a good time, so we'd love to have you out there. So the project today that we're talking about, and really the goal is to just inform you a little bit about what this group has helped us with at the airport, and then really just to ask you to send it back to us and work with the finance department to develop some details on this, but wanted to get your conceptual approval of this. Out of Beaufort Executive, you've probably heard from Mr. Glover for years that folks approach him and say, when are you going to build some hangars out there? We know there's a tremendous need. And there is, and as of this afternoon, there are 68 people on the waiting list. Okay, and those are 68 people who have put down a deposit to be on the waiting list. They're not just people signing their names on a list. So they have put money down and they are on the waiting list. Who would very much like to have a hangar. Some of them have been on there for many, many years. This project will help to alleviate that. It won't completely fix it, but the project includes 20 T hangars, which is our greatest need out there. So that will be tremendously helpful. It's really been in development for multiple years. The hangar list has been pretty lengthy for quite a while. But like I said, we worked with county staff and with our members of the board to come up with what we think is really the best method to move forward with this in order to get the project completed. We are thankful to have some ARPA funds from the county to kind of get this started. So we've used that for some of the design and some of the preliminary work out there. And we're at the point now where the site work is actually out for bid, and we should have numbers in towards the end of this week to look at. And then very shortly thereafter, the actual construction cost for the hangars, or that phase of the project, will be out for bid as well. So we'll have real hard numbers very soon, and that will help us to develop the details of this. I will say, too, this is probably the most consequential and impactful decision that this council will make on behalf of the residents and customers out at Beaufort Executive Airport. This is a big project for that airport, and we've been waiting for it for a very long time. So you've seen the details in the AIS, but some of the strong points about the project, really the easiest one, and the one that I hope answers all of your questions right up front, is that the revenue that we'll generate through these hangars offsets the investment. So it pays for itself as we go. So we think it's the best way to develop the hangars. and make sure that we can meet the need that's out there, at least partially address the need. Another good aspect of the project, you can probably see on the site plan that was passed out, is that there's a variety of hangars. I mentioned the T hangars, that's the smaller type hangar, and that's for the, our most common type of aircraft out at the airport. And that's the one that folks really need to see. But then we've also got a couple of different types on there too. You'll notice that there's a box hangar added on to one of the existing hangar buildings, and that's a nice flexible space that could potentially be used for a larger aircraft or maybe a couple of smaller aircraft. And then there's what we're calling a transient hangar, and that is one that's also in high demand. That'll be a larger box-type hangar, and we would rent that out on a nightly basis. So if you think of apartment rates versus hotel rates, you can typically make a little bit more revenue on a nightly basis. And there's a tremendous need for that. We do get some very expensive aircraft that come in and out of that airport, and certainly during the thunderstorm season, when you may see hail and things like that, severe weather, folks who have that type of aircraft are very willing to pay a nightly fee to put their multi-million-dollar aircraft under a roof. So that's what that hangar is intended for. Obviously, it's flexible, so we can use it for, if we don't have transient folks, we can put other folks in that hangar as well. So we think it's a very flexible plan. There's a lot of different things that can happen with it, but the biggest item is that it will finally start to address that need of the 68 folks who are waiting for a hangar out there.
So
I have a
John,
question.
yeah, go ahead.
How long will it take to build this that you're looking at?
Well, since we're already out to bid on the site work, once we get that, if the numbers look good, then we'll be able to move forward. I would imagine site work is probably 6 months to a year.
Oh, okay.
Depending on if you never know once
Yeah,
you
you
start
don't know.
turning solar what you find, but hopefully it'd be quick. And then as the site work is finishing up, hopefully we can move into kind of a phased approach on the buildings. I don't think the buildings will take that long to build. They're pre-engineered steel buildings, and they can be assembled rather quickly once the slabs are poured.
And what's your projected return on investment?
That's a great question. We're still working on some of those details, and that's what we want to go back to finance with. But in very rough numbers, if we look at the T hangars, so we would have 20 T hangars out there in this project. Those would be brand-new T hangars, and looking at the market and comparables in the region, those could be charged or could be rented for anywhere from $600 to $650 a month, which means if we had, make sure I can find all my information here, but if we end up with the loan as we mentioned it in here, then the estimated debt service, and we kind of made some, I hope, conservative estimates. On a 30-year schedule at a 2.5% interest rate, the debt service is about $185,000. And at that rental rate, just at a $600 rental rate, we would generate about $38,000 in revenue over and above debt service for those. And again, that can go into reserve funds to take care of future maintenance and things like that.
All right, thank you.
So I saw you have other designs on the outside here. Are you just looking today for the one that's like in the dark gray? Or is
Yeah.
the entire design?
The rest of those buildings are existing buildings.
On the far right, okay. So this is just laid out in the new designs, okay. And then you think you can generate $144,000 a year in rent off those 20 hangars at $600 a pop?
Yes. Well, actually, the annual revenue off just the T hangars would be over $200,000.
Yeah, I would think it'd be more.
Okay.
Where do you?
I'm sorry.
Be 144,
That
so I have it
includes, I'm
600.
sorry, that's all in, all the buildings.
All of
All the
It's all of
buildings,
it, yes,
okay.
my mistake. So, yes, about just shy of 225 on a conservative basis for
Okay.
all the buildings.
So the
Hey,
next step,
Logan, what's the total number of hangars that they're gonna build?
20 are gonna be built. Existing is how many, John?
Existing, let's see, we've got 34 T hangars out there now, so this will add 20. And then there would be, like I mentioned, that box at the end of one of the hangars. and then the transient hangar 2, which if we didn't have transients in, could service several other smaller aircraft.
So at least 54, Larry,
I'm talking about new construction,
20,
plus 2 boxes.
Correct.
yes.
Thank you.
Will that accommodate, John, all 68 people?
No, sir.
No. So, is there room to accommodate all 68?
No, sir. Not as it stands yet, but, you know, hopefully in the future we start looking at that. But this is actually an interesting benefit that we got from some other development out in that area, because when the Walmart was put in several years ago, they had to run sewer out there. And once they ran sewer out there, it was a stroke of genius that someone mandated that project to stub sewer across the road to where mosquito control is located. We were able to pick up that sewer in a previous project and run it over to the terminal building, which was previously on septic. So now that freed up development area that had to be reserved for potential drain field, which now can be developed to become revenue producing for the airport.
So what are our next steps?
What I would like for you to do as a committee is to basically direct us to go back to the finance department, approve the concept of this, of taking a loan, an internal loan within the county, and developing those terms and conditions, and then bring those recommendations back to finance committee for finance committee's consideration.
Who carries the note? Does your guys' account carry the note, or does the county carry the note?
The airport carries
The
the note.
airport's account carries the note.
Yes.
I mean, we don't have to take a vote on it, but I think it's pretty clear. Most people want to move forward and see, honestly, if we can get more hangars if possible out there. I wouldn't see why that wouldn't help alleviate some of the pressure on Hilton Head as well. So,
There's a list down there too.
don't tell me that, John. Don't tell me that, John. One thing at a time.
You'll keep seeing me pop up here.
All right, so I think you have a clear understanding with that. So if you guys need to get with the finance department to start moving that forward and see what we need to do. Are there any other questions for John on this specific one before we move on to his other 50,000 items that he has?
Well, when it comes to finance committee, if you could delineate the return on investment, as we talked about, that would be helpful.
So is it
Absolutely.
the committee or meeting with staff?
We will meet with staff, but when we get details, then it becomes a finance committee approval item, so we would bring it back to finance committee.
Mark, okay.
Just real quick, is it actually worth looking into scaling it up, or is this where you want to be right now with the plan?
As far as the area, it's all the area that we have available
Okay,
right now.
gotcha. Well, fair enough.
Yes. If we could do second stories on hangars, we would.
I don't think so.
It's,
Hey,
aircraft
John, you-
carriers do, but that's
John,
pretty
you brought,
pricey.
You brought a few people with you in the audience, I see. Any of them want to have anything to say about this?
Anyone, they're all aircraft owners, some have been on other aircraft, or airports boards and have done this type of project, but all of them have a keen business acumen and have been able to advise us as staff. So if anybody wants to say anything, you're more than welcome. You sat
They
around
don't look
for a
like a
while.
group of guys that take a vow of silence. I'm thinking some of them are
You
probably
want
going
to
to have some.
introduce them, tell us who they are?
Sure. Well, Chris Butler is our chairman of the airports board, so I'll let him do the.
Yeah, thank you for the time. This has been vetted and gone through several times, and we're using some conservative numbers. Your rent factor on the T hangars is very accurate. One of the areas that was kind of kept back was the big box hangar for overnights. We're only figuring that there would be 12 nights that it's used, which is less than 50%. And that revenue, we're also not figuring in revenue. We could bring some other people that are waiting for hangars in that big box hangar when it's not being used, and that revenue calculation isn't in there as well. So this really could be a large revenue generator that easily carries the note. But the other part of it that a lot of people forget about is we're looking at rent factors today. We're not talking about, think about rent factors 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that really have increased that. And that's one of the hard problems we have at ARW is we're trying to bring in new clientele, but in order to make money, you gotta spend money.
Yeah.
This is one of those ways to spend it, bring it in, and it's, as a business plan goes, and I've done a lot of them, this is about as close to a no-brainer as you're gonna get.
Thank you.
That's very helpful for us. Hey, Let me
Might have a
extend my
couple
thanks
extra
to
passive
your
parks you can
buddies
use.
back there for coming tonight, John. It was very kind of them to take their
Park them
time
in a passive
to
park.
come over here and provide support to you as you made this presentation.
Well, thank you. And gents, you don't have to stay for the rest if you don't want to. Thank you for being here.
Okay.
All right, moving on to this next portion. There's 4, I believe, grants. I would like to take those individually, just because they are all a little bit different with matching funds and stuff like that. If we could do that, and then we will go into the portion and try to combine a couple of these, if that's okay with you, John. Okay. Number 18, recommend approval of the council of a resolution to accept FAA Airport Improvement Project Grant for St. James Baptist Church relocation environmental documentation, Phase 1, contingent upon final FAA offer. Do we have a motion
I'll make a motion.
in a second?
I'll second that.
All right, John, the breakdown on this, looks like the funding, at 90% is coming from the AIP,
Correct.
and then the other 10% is gonna be provided by the airport.
By the airport.
Okay. Do we have any objection to this?
No, my question was, how much is in the airport account? But since it's early in the year, I'm sure you have plenty of funds in there.
It is. I can tell you that we ended FY '24 with $2.2 million in our equity and pool cash, so that we can use that as part of our share. But also, we work with finance, and they want to see all grant money in one GL. So that number is very large right now because of the terminal project and because of the $5 million in BIL funds we just got. So that just grew by $5 million.
But that's already
last week.
dedicated to another project. from the
So
grant.
it is, but it does rotate. So these are, most of these are multi-year projects.
Yeah.
And so all of that rotates through, but that equity and pool cash funds our share of it at the airport, and we've got more than enough to cover the 4 projects we have here.
Can I ask one question, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
How does this align with the Tom Davis program or thought on getting funding separate from federal?
That's a great question. And so with St. James, what we talked about was just the conflict or the question of, do we pursue a major FAA project and try to go above and beyond a simple property acquisition and try to find additional funds for the project, for St. James Baptist Church to build on a new site. And what we decided was, since Senator Davis has been able to find some money at the state level, which is extremely helpful, that's kind of freed us up on the airport side to do, I don't want to say it's basic, but it's a more typical property acquisition project, because it is still an airport property acquisition project of St. James Baptist Church and then the school across the street, because of the fact that they're both located in the runway protection zone. So that has to happen.
No matter what, yeah.
Councilwoman Howard's very familiar with that from working the ACUs at the air station. But that's a mandatory project that we really have to undertake. And in order to be eligible for these federal funds, you have to go through that NEPA process, which Jennifer described earlier, those different phases. And this will be an environmental assessment, an EA. So it's that mid-level environmental document that we'll put together. This will be done in phases. So this is the first phase, and this will inform the second phase. We do anticipate being back here with another grant in another federal fiscal year to fund the second phase of that.
I expect it every time now.
That's right.
You guys are definitely hard at work. My question is this the same process you were taking at our last meeting where you're applying, or you're trying to get approval from us first because the money does have to be allocated faster than our meetings?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought, because the next couple ones say, final FFA offer, so it hasn't been approved yet. We just had the anticipation of it being approved.
Right, and actually, some of those are coming in almost as we speak. We had another grant come in on Friday, another offer that's in here as a contingent, so.
Okay.
It's happening.
Perfect. Any objection to number 18? When I see no objection, we will move on to 19. Recommend approval of the council of a resolution to accept FAA Bill AIG grant funding for Beaufort Executive Airport Runway 07/25 Rehabilitation Project, contingent upon final FFA offer again. And this also looks like 90% will be done by the grant, 5% done SCAC. What's that stand for?
That's the South Carolina Aeronautics Commission.
And then the other 5% will be provided by the airport funding.
Correct.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
That's second.
First by Mr. Reed, second by and second by Mr. Glover. Any objection? And I see no objection. This will also be approved.
So this is only 2 bids, correct? You
Yes.
couldn't get a third?
Did we get
Or
three
these-
in ARPA 3?
For 19.
There was just
This
two.
is 19.
Yep.
You have 2 bids on here and then the engineer's estimate. We're just hypersensitive to having enough bids.
It is, and I think we might have actually discussed this very project when we came, I think we talked about it before, if, I don't remember
About the
exactly what it
runway
was.
cement and so many people only being qualified for it. Yeah.
It was,
Yeah, this
yes.
is APAC and the other one's
But
Florida.
there's really only 2 that were qualified even remotely close to us.
It's a
That's the
small
same thing.
pool,
Yeah.
right.
Because I believe you said the certain type of material that goes on the runway.
Well, even just asphalt in general, around here, there are very few providers.
Yeah.
Any objection?
Nope.
See no objection, that one does pass as well. We'll move on to number 20, a resolution to accept FAA AIP grant funding for Beaufort Executive Airport, runway 07/25 rehabilitation project contingent upon final FFA offer. And this is done the exact same way at a 90% with the grant, and 5% at us, and the other, and the same for SCAC. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So move.
Mr. Bartholomew, and a second by Mr. Glover. Any discussion? See no discussion. This can be done with no objection. And again, I see no objection on that, so that will also be approved. Number 21, recommend approval to council of a resolution to accept FFA bipartisan infrastructure law airport infrastructure grant for Hilton Head Island Airport layout plan contingent upon final FFA offer. This one will be 75% done by the grant, and the other 25% will be carried by your department, John, sorry. Do we have a motion for this?
Well, I'll make the motion.
And a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion?
So this was originally done in 2011, correct? And now you're updating it, if I'm reading the AIS correctly?
That's exactly right. The airport layout plan is actually a requirement by the FAA. And when our county administrator signs the sponsor assurances, sponsor certifications for a project, anytime we receive those federal grant dollars, there are the strings attached. One of them is to make sure that you have an updated and signed airport layout plan. That actually, once the FAA approves it, actually becomes a legal document that we execute our projects based upon that
And how
layout
long,
plan.
because this plan was 2011, that's a long time ago. How long does the FAA say you can keep that same plan?
It really, there's no hard and fast rule on that because different airports develop it at different rates. And an ALP update may be triggered by a major change. Maybe an airport ends up getting new commercial service when it didn't have commercial service before, or maybe it falls out of having commercial service, or some major condition changes, or you just finish up the projects on your master plan list and you're ready to move on to the next phase. So
I
we're,
was just surprised it was so old.
we've been working hard, though.
Yeah, I know.
Going as fast as we can.
He
I
brings
come
something
here every month.
every month, I promise.
Usually the feds want you updating it a lot sooner than that, but that's fine, thanks.
Any objection?
Nope.
And I see no objection, this will be approved. All right, number 22, 23, 24, and 25 are all letters of agreements. They are creating revenue for the Hilton Head Airport with taxi limousine services. I will read all 4, but if I could first get a motion to take 22, 23, and 24, and 25 together.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Reeds,
Yeah,
yes.
I'll do it.
I'll second Ms. Tabernick. And I will go ahead and read all 4 of them real quick before we take our vote. Recommend approval of the council resolution authorizing the county administrator to enter into a letter of agreement for taxi limousine service between Beaufort County and S&J Expressway Taxi Corporation. 23 is recommend approval to council of a resolution authorizing the county administrator to enter into a letter of agreement for taxi limousine services between Beaufort County and Native Islanders Transportation, LLC. 24 is recommend approval to council of a resolution authorizing the county administrator into a letter of agreement for taxi limousine services between Beaufort County and Ferguson Transportation. Number 25 is recommend approval of the council resolution authorizing the county administrator to enter in a letter of agreement for taxi limousine services between Beaufort County and Apple Transportation. Those are being taken together. Do I have a motion to approve all four?
Motion, yes.
you got it.
Mr. Reeds is the first, a second.
No, I thought you had it already.
Yeah.
I think the motion was just to take them
Just to
together.
take them together.
Now a motion to approve. Do I have a second to
I'll
approve?
second it.
Tabernick with the second, thank you. Any objection or discussion?
I just have a comment. I really like the way you spelled out in these contracts that they have certain fares and they have to be displayed. So our visitors don't think, you know, his cab company's charging more than mine. And the criteria you have for what the vehicle should look like, what the driver should dress like. They can't show up like, they can't show up in a bathing suit and flip-flops. That kind of stuff, I think, gives our airport a professional look.
Saying they can't show up dressing like what I look like at work.
That would be right.
Got it.
They'll wear their hat.
You can wear a hat, no hat probably, I don't know.
Do we have any objection?
No.
All right, this will be approved with no objection. That means we will move on to the next item. Again, number 26, 27, and 28. They are all all for commercial operating agreements. I would like to take all three of those together if I could with a motion.
So moved.
And
I'll
a
second.
second by Ms. Howard. Thank you. And again, I will read all three. Any objection to taking those together? I see no objection. And again, I'll read those and then we will take our vote. Number 26, recommend approval of council of resolution authorizing the county administrator to enter into a non-tenant commercial operating agreement between Beaufort County and Stevens Aerospace and Defense Systems. Number 27 is recommend approval of the council of a resolution authorizing the county administrator into a non-tenant commercial operating agreement between Beaufort County and EGA Aero Specialty Services LLC. Number 28 is recommend approval of council of a resolution authorizing the county administrator to enter in a non-tenant commercial agreement between Beaufort County and Constant Aviation. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mr. Passman with the motion, Mr. Reeds with the second. Do we have any objection?
I have a question.
Absolutely.
Mr. Rimbaud, do you have a projected, for all of this bunch and last bunch, how much revenue this would bring? Any idea at all, or you have to try it the first year and then see what you get?
No, man, we've had these agreements in place before with the same entities. Number 27 is new, but 26 and 28 we've had in place. And the amount of revenue that comes in is totally dependent on what goes on at the airport, because what they both provide is service to an airplane that flies into the airport and experiences some type of mechanical difficulty.
Right.
So they're an on-call service. They're just not resident at the airport. So they travel to the airport and then provide that maintenance to get the airplane back in the air. But totally dependent on what happens with that aircraft.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I want to make a comment. Thank you, John, for bringing activity to Beaufort Executive Airport.
Well, like
And,
Jared said, there's a big team that's putting this together. I'm just a guy who's privileged to be working there.
We appreciate it, and I guess since I got on council, most of the revenue was actually diesel fuel for airplanes and stuff. Now we're getting some other activities as far as revenue generated. And so
That's right.
hopefully
Thank
we
you.
can see not a break even, but a profit.
Absolutely. That's the goal.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, this would be approved with no objection. John, I will tell you, you might want to get Mr. Moore a pen to sign all these for you, because it's going to be a long afternoon for him.
All right. Thank you.
With that, this meeting is adjourned, 5:22.